All right, this is Lloyd Princeton with Design Management Company. Happy Friday to everybody, and I don't know, actually, this is, I think, maybe the sixth teleconference that we've done. I am going to open this with a really beautiful poem that I read, and I think it's so apropos right now, by a William Henry Davies, who lived from 1871 to 1940. What is this life if, full of care, we have no time to stand and stare, no time to stand beneath the boughs and stare as long as sheep or cows, no time to see when woods we pass, where squirrels hide their nuts in grass, no time to see in broad daylight streams full of stars, like skies at night. No time to turn at beauty's glance and watch her feet, how they can dance. No time to wait till her mouth can enrich that smile her eyes began. A poor life, this if, full of care, we have no time to stand and stare. So on that beautiful note, aren't we all really fortunate to have extra time on our hands to start staring and see what's so beautiful around us, right? So let's dive into this. There's quite a bit going on, and I think today is very apropos to discuss for a few moments my experience with SBA lending, because I, by the way, through a professional packager, did apply for all, by the way, SBA available loans. And I'll work backwards. I got an email today from the lender that my PPP application was submitted to, saying they're out of funds, right? Isn't that great? I was Johnny on the spot. My application was in the minute that it could be filed, and as far as we know, everything was in line, and they're now out of funds. So while the politicians dicker around and hold things up, what we're hoping, and by the way, I had a long call this morning with the professionals at this, what we're hoping is that this will give banks and various lenders a chance to get caught up on loan processing and get everything in a queue, which could be as much as up to actually approving you, pending funding from the federal government. So if you got one of those lovely emails, as I did, or you haven't even had an acknowledgement, don't despair. And we expect that this could be released as early as the latter part of next week, and then funding would go right away. So because the banks already have allotted money in many respects, they can't proceed with anything. So that's my little PPP update. I also had a little annoying thing happen. I also originally applied for an EIDL loan, which I had mentioned to people, which is the Economic Income Disaster loan, which essentially is a loan you can apply through the SBA to make up for lost revenue. I did that 3 weeks ago. I did it over the weekend, the first weekend when the systems were crashing and all kinds of goodness, but I knew it went through. Didn't hear a thing. Managed to get in the other day through I don't even know a way to check status, except I randomly came across my archived login, and I logged in, and there was a nice little status button, which I clicked on, and the status told me that I needed to reapply and then do some sort of self-certification, and then, right under that it said, and we're no longer taking applications right now. So if you had applied for an EIDL and did not hear anything, you could follow up on it, certainly. I will tell you, after the EIDL, I also was prompted to apply again because I thought I would take advantage of the $10,000 emergency advance, which also, by the way, turns into a grant. I have heard nothing about that either. So no news. I don't know if no news is good news, but it's just letting you know if this is what's happened to you, you were not alone. And I spoke with my professionals on this, and they said, yes, that's the deal, but you should definitely try to follow up on the $10,000 advance, because they said that will be in a grant. So that will be free money, if you will, just as the PPP will also be free money, if you will. And then last but not least, I have shared the link in the past, and I'm only going to just do a quickie on this. The CDC is not not to be confused with the epidemiology. The CDC also has a separate tranche of money for lending and can go up to some serious numbers. All of these things are different. So not to keep you confused, but there are different things out there. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say on the lending front. I also read two really interesting articles today, which I think will lead into the conversation that we're going to have with Julia, and then I know she's going to prompt me a little bit as well. But great article in the Wall Street Journal today that said that the luxury sector in spending in China, now that China is reopening, is surging. LVMH has reported some terrific sales, that a lot of the pent-up demand, which is something we heard with the last recession, which is what we're tossing around now, the pent-up demand from the Chinese consumers of luxury goods has been exactly what we had hoped for. We all hope for that, because a lot of these luxury good buyers are the same people who would hire and utilize design services. So that was a really positive note, and that's what they're witnessing in China. So I'm going to fingers crossed that pent-up demand translates into the U.S. market when we come back online. And you're reading the same reports that I am. So I think it's going to ultimately boil down to a state-by-state basis on that. And, candidly, if you have an opinion on it and you have a specific, need or want around it, I think you should reach out to your your state legislators, and let them know how you feel about it, one way or the other. Another interesting article I read, which ties into marketing, one of the things that we're going to talk about today, is that, as we've all heard about the online influencers, people specifically who've got, hundreds of thousands, if not 1 million Instagram followers, the YouTube people. Usually it's the younger kids who are, touting cosmetics, and, they're making you've read articles about them making gobs of money, and if you were like me, you were probably jealous. Because I was having some envy. And the digital influencers, and I'm going to just use the word digital broadly to cover all the platforms, have had a very interesting, and by the way, social media in general, Facebook, Google, everybody is basically experiencing the same thing. There has definitely been an increase, dramatic, hundreds of percent, depending upon the platform, increase in usage. However, concurrent with that has been a dramatic decrease in advertised spending dollars. So guess what? These influencers are getting lots of eyes, but those eyes are not spending any money. And more so, those influencers are now not being paid by a lot of their major brands who are paying them copious amounts of money that they did from the comfort of their their living rooms. So their stay at home was never much different. And these kids that were getting thousands of dollars per mention on Instagram, no more. They're having to pivot, and it's being refined. Not to say they're not getting any money. It's not all or nothing, but it isn't the gravy days of what it was. So there's been definitely a decrease of ad spends, and that is affecting a lot of people, especially in Google as well. In fact, the parent Alphabet company has just reported some layoffs. So there you have it. There is definitely a shakeout happening, and it remains to be seen, where it's going to go. So I will also just share with you my experience right now with my own business, or what's going on in the market, because I think it is relevant, and I want designers to be aware of this as well. In spite of what you may be seeing in terms of the unemployment claims across the nation, and the fact that basically it is considered that we are in a recession, and it's a grave recession because of so many people unemployed, I don't know that it's hit the design industry that way. And my only let you interpret this as you wish. However, I still have a number of searches for senior positions: senior commercial designer, senior residential designer, senior hospitality designer, in primary markets, Philadelphia, Southeast Florida, where there's gajillion-dollar homes, in Connecticut, and also something in Northern California and the Peninsula, a senior kitchen designer. We are not seeing an increase in candidate availability. I'm not getting deluged. So, while I'm not getting any new search orders, I'm also not able to, it has not been any easier to fill the ones that we currently have. We're not seeing an increase in candidates applying for things. So my interpretation of this is, and yeah, there has been a little bit of an increase, which we can monitor, by the way, of people updating their resumes, but they're not applying. So my takeaway from this is that people are sticking put at their firms are not firing them, and they're waiting this out. So this is good news, in my opinion. Doesn't make my job easier, but that's good. That's good too, because that means I could still have a job, and that means that design firms are still feeling confident, and maybe that confidence is by the fact that they've got a lot of work in the pipeline. In fact, I was just speaking with one of my clients who has 6 people on staff, high-end residential firm, Jupiter, Florida. She said she's never been busier, and that she had signed a couple projects right at the beginning of the year. And I said, great, but have you signed anything new since this has started happening? She goes, yes, as a matter of fact, I just signed up another one last week, and I've got more inquiries out. I have had that same feedback from quite a few clients around the country. So my takeaway from this is the people with money are still going to spend it. And they are still proceeding with projects. Yes, there of course are people who've been pulling back. Yes, there are people who are watching and waiting. But it's not all or nothing. It is not gloom or doom. Design firms are not having to shutter their doors. This is, I don't want to make something that it isn't. So I'm actually feeling kind of buoyant about things. I'm using this as a little vacation time, and I'm looking at it as a time to watch, wait, and see, and learn, and read, and do things I haven't been doing, and I'm studying my French and doing stuff like that. But I don't think we're going to be out of business, and I'm feeling really good about it. So on that note, I think it is entirely appropriate for me to turn the floor over to the most lovely, wonderful Julia Malloy, who has wonderful insights to share with us, as she did the previous calls that she's been on. And I'd kind of like to give her a little prompt with this for her to jump in and talk to us for 10 minutes. And, Julia, what do you think designers should be doing right now to pivot their business? So I turn the floor over to Miss Julia. And if you star 6, you'll unmute yourself, Julia.
Okay, I'm here. Can you hear me well?
Yep, go for it.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you so much, Lloyd, for having me today. It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for the insights and the information this morning. Super helpful. Nice to have a touch point on all of that.
Thank you.
So what should they be doing to pivot their business right now? Couple things. One is across the board, I would say everyone needs to be looking at delivering their services or their goods in a way that is more digital. And I think this is pretty obvious. We're seeing everyone doing Zoom meetings and things like that. I've got designers that are sterilizing and then delivering samples to their clients and then going over them virtually through Zoom or Skype or whatever it is. And several of them are saying that it is working really well for them. So I do have others that are like, well, they're not there to zhuzh and sell and do their thing. But all in all, the majority of people that I am talking to are able to convert to a virtual platform as needed. Sometimes, for the ones that are in the luxury and the higher end of the spectrum in terms of client base, this shift will in large part be temporary. Not to say that we won't carry over some of the digital, but it won't be as long term, this is how business is done. Those servicing the mid and lower end of the spectrum of design clients, this is going to be more permanent. So you're going to want to incorporate digital formats into your business. And I mean, I'm thinking, augmented reality, ways in which to deliver your vision and kind of design services in a very visually rich environment. And there's all kinds of new apps and technology evolving around this right now. So I would be, an early adopter in terms of some of these virtual room tours and things like that. So that would be one way that I would look at pivoting. The other way is product. So, I mean, we've been talking about converting service business to more of a product business. And designers are doing that anyway. You're buying product and taking it over to your clients. I would say if you can figure out a way to bundle not only your service but the product in an online fashion, it's going to serve you very well going forward. And, aside from all of this pandemic and the pivots and the shifts, it's a good idea anyway. The service business is a really hard business to maintain. I mean, as soon as you stop working, the money stops, versus developing a product line or, packaging product, per room or per style or per look or per application is a really nice way to develop like an asset, which is much more conducive to having some kind of exit strategy and having a more passive stream of income. So I'd be looking at ways in which to deliver some kind of product in your business. Those are the two main things that I would say.
Okay, great. I'm going to ask you something about time management in a moment, Julia, but I also want to take this as an opportunity just to make a reference to something you mentioned about the lower end of the market. And I only learned of this yesterday, so I'm sharing it with the group. This is not an endorsement, but it is. My clients are amazing. I know the family very well. Clients of mine out of Salt Lake City, a company called Alder and Tweed, who have multiple high-end residential design offices, also manufacture furniture. Things that of the high point, caliber. They have created a business called a new online portal called Side Door, S-I-D-E, Door, and the website can be accessed at sidedoor.com. And what they have enabled is what they're envisioning is that there will be a curated group of manufacturers of different price points, but that what they were going to do is they're creating a way for you to be able to work with a lot of DIY people or people who are not going to pay you major markups and let you sell a bunch of stuff, but you could, let's say, earn your hourlies, you maybe get a design fee, however you're able to structure it. But the basic concept is that you would pull together a full scheme for the client, send it to them in an online version. It may even be a section of your own website, and that anything they then buy generates a commission for you. And I don't know that this is 100% unique compared to what's in the market, but it sounds newer to me, and I know they're awfully smart and awfully good people. So I would literally just had a conversation about it yesterday. I'm just pointing that out. But in my conversation with them and why it dovetails into what Julia was saying is it will be for a lower price point. Somebody who's not going to get a full service client, or someone, once again, it's going to be DIY. You're going to send them 30, 40, 50 things, pieces of furniture, and whatever they buy, you'll at least get your commission on it. So Julie, let me ask you another question. Can you think of a few things that maybe, aside from, enjoying the beauty of our nature out there, as the poem suggests, what do you think designers can be doing with this extra time on their hands right now?
So two main things. Great question, and I think a lot of people are educating themselves, listening to webinars and all of that stuff, which is really important. But I would say there's two main focuses that I would suggest that everyone look at. One is outward-facing and inward-facing. So the outward-facing is making sure that what is showing up in the world in terms of your brand, your website, your logo, your business card, all of the outward-facing elements are absolutely congruent with your core values, your key characteristics, what the vibe is and what your brand stands for. positioning your brand to be not just a service provider doing a particular service, but really to stand for something, to embody a certain lifestyle or way of being or an ideal. So really to hone in on what that core message is of your brand, and then refine your website, the messaging, go through your portfolio. You're only as good as the worst photo up there. So if it's a good photo, but it's not really hitting home, crop it, or, do some zhuzhing to it. So, get rid of the outlets and things like that. Really polish up your portfolio, the messaging, get a new headshot on there. A lot of, people want to see you. So polish that up and make sure it's absolutely congruent with what you stand for as a brand. And then internally, inward facing, this is absolutely a time to be, revamping your operation. So streamlining the roles, getting, the definitions of what everyone does and methodologies, your operations manual, streamlining the process flow, integrating the best new technology for your company. So if you're still on QuickBooks and spreadsheets and Excel, and this is a great time to get on Design, Studio Designer or Ivy or Mydoma or whatever one's going to be most appropriate for you. I mean, I have guidance on that, but, we don't have time for that today. But start incorporating some of those streamlining technologies and tightening up your communication workflow and short-term and long-term tasking and project management systems in your office. It's really difficult to do that when you're super busy. So if you're not super busy right now, hunker down and just plan on a wave hitting in a few months. How are you going to handle that work? And getting those efficiencies in place, because the ones who do that now are going to be much better positioned to take on that work and do it eloquently and really be able to polish up their client experience, which is going to be even more important in the new age, as it were. So those are the two main things.
That's great.
And
Julie, would you take 30 seconds, 60 seconds max, just to give us a perspective, like what you do when you go into, I mean, obviously right now we can't, from a social distancing perspective, but what do you do in your process when you help firms, when you work your magic?
Oh, yeah. The Malloy magic, the Malloy makeovers. So obviously I assess and figure out where their needs are, but I take them through a 9-step process that's called the Malloy method. And basically it's looking at, one is their tasking, the short-term tasking. What are we focused on? Who's doing what? Who's accountable for everything? So get that master task list in place and get your team sync meeting set up for the beginning of the week. Get your office rhythm situated. So like Monday mornings is, syncing up with everybody who's doing what this week, what got done last week. Then create a couple blocks, at least one block of a 3-hour period, usually Tuesday morning before lunch, I suggest, for design development, answering questions, going through POs, doing the design. And then segmenting a certain time to do all your orders once or twice a week in a block. And then, Fridays, bring it all to center, do client check-ins and that kind of thing. And then it's all about utilizing the tools you have in place to do all of your product tracking eloquently and kind of integrate the best practices in terms of the life cycle of a design project. And that's
beautiful.
Many steps, but
which it is. So it's getting, being organized and making sure that time is being used wisely. You remind me, and by the way, everybody, we're going to be opening up to questions in just a moment, but this reminds me of the work that I've done with Stephen Covey in time management. And, it really is about, you find more time when you do what's important first and when you structure things in an orderly manner and everything's calendared, because one of the great time wasters in an office, and especially with those people who have staff, and I guess this is a wonderful truism, is that an activity will expand into the time allotted to do it. So someone can take 2 hours to do something or get it done in 15 minutes, depending, but if they have 2 hours to do it, they tend to waste all that time, and it can draw out an activity. So there is great benefit to being highly organized and really a taskmaster and staying on time. And I know when I've done my consulting over the years, that one of the biggest complaints and problems was people were not having their weekly organizational meetings. And I said, just set them for 10 a.m. on Monday or whatever the time's going to be and do your best to stick to it. And they go, we do start out, but then it kind of falls to the wayside. Well, I got to tell you, being regimented with something like that sends a really important signal to the office, but it keeps everyone on track. And then also just to dovetail onto what Julia said, I literally, things that can be done. I just signed up a consultation for a firm in Northern California that wants me to review their comp plan for their whole office and make sure they're paying competitively, but they're also keeping people motivated. And that was predicated on, a staff member complaining that, they're not making enough or they should be making more, but also, my client kind of feeling that he's not being appreciated. So compensation is one of my, and pricing are some of my major strengths. And, I'm looking forward to diving into that. So, on that note, thank you, Julia, for your insights. Our wonderful callers people who've been listening, you can *6 to unmute yourself to ask questions. I'm going to ask you, please, to not make a statement or a reference. I really just want to look for questions right now. Please try to keep your question framed to about 30 seconds, and we're going to keep our responses to no more than 2 minutes. I'd like to be able to get in as many questions, and if with time left over, I will open it up to general discussion, and there will be a recording of this session made available to everybody as always.
Hey, Lloyd, can
yes,
I throw out the first question?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to start this off.
To me or yourself?
No, to you, of course. Well, you are the guru on marketing for the interior design industry, and I know you've written a book on it. And, I wanted to know what your thoughts are on how marketing has shifted from kind of the old way, I'm going to say, and what would have been in the book to now. Are there any key shifts in thinking and methodology now versus then? That is a great question. Julia is referring to my book, Marketing Interior Design, very cleverly titled, right? That actually came out 10 years ago on my 40th birthday. So for all you clever people listening, I am 50. Turned it in July. And yes, it is not too late to send a thank you gift or card. I just want to point that out to you. It's good for the whole year. You have until July 12th this year to do so. The book came out in 10 years ago. I did a second edition, which came out in 2013, and I've been reflecting on what has changed. And I'm not going to bore everybody with all the things that we already know about marketing, but what I want to, and especially based on the article I was just mentioning, having referenced about how there's a surge in eyeballs on social media right now, because I know so many people see this and everyone's trying to, post the most clever picture on Instagram. And if you don't have, current work, what a lot of designers are doing and a lot of top designers is they're posting pretty pictures from old stuff, from things that were theirs or maybe not even theirs. Or they're going, oh, today we'll benefit from seeing this beautiful yellow room designed in, 300 years ago or something. They're doing everything to stay in front, and they think that's going to be sufficient. And I got to be honest with you, I think there is just so much noise out there from digital media, which obviously we were recommending back in 2013, and it's surged since then. And maybe I didn't imagine it to go so much. It's huge. So, but there is just so much content out there now. Content from just streaming services. Did you know that there are 26 streaming services available to people to click away and watch at home? Let alone all the social media platforms and all the things that designers can do. So, I'm going to give you one really good takeaway. I think what we need to return to, or what designers will benefit from, and I've always been a huge proponent of physical collateral material. And I think now's the time to get your brand in the hands of the person you want to use it. And I think that's in the form of direct marketing. Think about, all the direct mail that gets mailed to people, door hangers that get left by things. And I may have written about it then, but I'm sure I've written in follow-up articles. But, what about creating a smart little gift
like the $5 to $10 value gift, and doing that and farming an area of clients that you want to go after, whether it's vacation homes or if you're in a specific community. Real estate agents have led the way on this for decades, and they called it farming essentially, and they would have a neighborhood and they would blanket the neighborhood with calendars and sticky notes and pens and all these things and holiday stuff, and they did all this good stuff. And, you found it kind of annoying, but guess what? It actually worked. People would eventually call them, because they had 49 of their calendars. And I honestly would love to recommend that you do the same thing. I mean, we know through unfortunately, since we no longer have any privacy, the benefit is that you can buy information. You can find out where households, and you decide what your demographics are. With a disposable income of X, with a net worth of that, with a home value of $1 million, $500,000, $200 million, whatever it is that you want it, you can get those demographics and find out where these people are and make it a really tight audience. 50, 100. It's not thousands. It's tight. And a drip campaign that you create that goes out, and you get to decide the frequency, monthly, quarterly. You want to be in front of people in thoughtful, clever, meaningful ways, and in a material way, something they physically have to receive and can't throw away. So, Julia, thank you for the question, and now I'm bored of hearing me talk. So other questions from our audience.
Hi, Lloyd. This is Jonathan Barron in New York. Do you remember me?
Oh, very, very well. Mr. Barron, what is your question?
Very, very well. Thank you so much. Well, I have a question, and I also would like to make a contribution that is on the subject matter that you just mentioned about marketing. Okay,
but do the question first, though, please, before we do any statements.
Okay. What is your opinion about design build? So it mixes. You know what design build is.
We do.
Right?
I think most of us do. Do you have a? I'm going to allow you to drive the question. I mean, let's assume we all know what design build is. Are you looking for what? I
believe I have a concept where I'm going to be partnering with a contractor with a showroom that design build, and I'd like to ask you what you believe that is going towards in the new era that we're coming into, because the old era where there's the cost plus, hire the decorator, the designer, and for X dollars for that fee, and then every object that goes into it, every product, every service is a cost plus. I think that
right. Let me tackle this. I get where you're going with the question, and I'm going to also give Julie a chance to chime in on it. But I'm going to rapid fire this. I think our systems continue to evolve, but I can guarantee you there's going to be a cost-plus client out there that will let you run that contract through them. So when you can do it, you will make a lot of money. So do not be afraid to still ask for it, and then if you can't get it, then you try your other pricing methods. I am very familiar with design build. I actually have some very good design build clients. I think that is also a very important market segment, and they will continue to make money. But I don't think, Jonathan, it's an either or. I don't think it's going to be that's going to be better than full service interior design where you hope to get a design fee, an hourly, and a cost plus, because I've got tons of clients who are still getting that, and people do say yes to those contracts. So I think that, Jonathan, I applaud you for wanting to try another angle, and I absolutely think you should do just that. Try. Because listen, what works in Manhattan may not work in Kansas City. And the country is so big, and what works with one price point, and I'm going to use the design build example, in Peninsula, I have clients down in the Menlo Park and in Campbell area who design build, but guess what? They're doing build outs, or they're doing construction of a couple $100,000 versus the millions for some of the houses that are happening. So they go, that's our sweet spot. We're going to get somebody who cannot afford, who's in a $1 to $2 million home, who can't afford to move out, but they need more space. So that's what we are. We're not fancy designers. We're not the San Francisco or the Peninsula elite of high-end design, but we are the sweet spot of the middle market. So to Julia's point, they were very, very clear about who their audience is, and that's the segment they're going for. And there's no reason why you can't do that as well. Julia, do you have anything different you want to share around that point?
I just want to stress the fact that those collaborations and packaging bundled services is going to go big right now, and I don't think it's going to go away. So I think the more service providers and ancillary businesses that you can bundle your product with, the better. And I also want to say in terms of price point, the main target is not so much the model, but at the end of the day, the 40% gross profit margin on those projects is what your target is. So it doesn't matter how you get that to that number, whether it's all product, all service, some combination, some flat fee that includes certain things. You just need to hit your 40% gross profit margin at the end of the day. So use that as your guiding light, and you can't go wrong.
I love it. Jonathan, thank you for the question. Someone else, please. *6 if you wish to ask a question.
Hey, Lloyd, it's Donna.
Hey, Donna Livingston.
Hi, Donna.
Hi, Lloyd, Julia. How are you, darling, honey?
I'm good.
Two things I want to just say. Thank you so much for the information with regard to the loan packaging, because I thought somehow we screwed up, and I was really, so I'm really thankful to hear kind of, it's a ditto kind of thing here on my side.
Got it.
And then secondly, I do like the idea, Lloyd, of you're talking about the direct market idea. Mm-hmm. And I pursued that idea months and months ago. I mean, not even know how many months ago, 6 months ago, right, where I did postcards, with 4 different, looks, different designs of things. And we mailed them out to new home owners or, new buyer type things. We didn't get one response back on any of these things. So I'm wondering, how do you zero in on that tight market that you're talking about? Because I have all these cards already done and ready to be shipped out.
That's well. So I'm not surprised by your experience. And by the way, remember, as part of my original, when I mentioned this, I mentioned you're creating a drip campaign. Drip, drip, drip. That's what real estate agents do. They drip, drip, drip and annoy you for years until you're ready to sell your home, and then you're like, oh, for the love of God, please come in and give me a CMA on my house. I'm going to use you, or at least give you a chance. And that's essentially what we're talking about here. Is wear them down, people. You got to beat these people into submission to get their money, and and you do that by choosing the set of homes and that that audience. And in this case, there are, if you're doing direct mail, as Donna, you've done with your postcards, direct mail firms actually have those demographics and will sell you a mailing list. And for people who are going after the super high-end market, there are a number of high net worth individual marketing organizations that will also get you access to lists. And oftentimes, if you're looking by demographics, you may just say, listen, any home that is valued at $5 million or more, and in Donna, based on where you are, you might just say, I'm making this up, you might go the Flatlands of Beverly Hills. Anything that falls in this zip code or this zip code, probably, or a house that has sold within the last 3 years. This is all what mailing list companies have, and they can give you that, and that's how you can narrow down your list. But you're not going to necessarily get a call right away. It's brand awareness. And then you keep dripping, and you might drop a card. You did 4 different looks. You might want to spread those out over, once every 2 months or something like that. But here's what's really important, too. The rule of thumb used to be, and I don't know if that's modified, and I apologize because I need to dig into that statistic, but it used to be 8 times a year the same set of eyes needed to see your brand. So that means, Donna, if you did 4 postcards in the course of the year, you would still need to have 4 other opportunities to be in front of that set of eyeballs. So how do you do it? Well, maybe Donna takes a room at the next Greystone showcase if it was happening. That could count. They're going to do a bunch of marketing around that, and they may have a whole marketing campaign, and those people very well may see it in the Beverly Hills area. That may constitute the other 4. If you're not doing something big and grand like a showcase, then maybe you are going to be a panelist at an upcoming design trade show. So you will, and you know that they're going to be marketing that. You may use that as an opportunity, and you're also sending out to your database saying, hey, I'm going to be on this panel discussion. And what's really good about being invited to speak on things is that someone thinks you're an authority enough that they're going to put you in front of their people. So it's almost an endorsement, even if what you say is complete, hogwash. it makes it look good. So so that's it. I'm going to just answer. The question is answered with, be in front of the same set of people 8 times, and direct mail services can do it. And that's kind of also an offline question we can help you target. But there's tons of services that will help you find exactly who you're looking for. So Donna, thank you for the question. Another question, please.
I have a contribution, Lloyd, if you'd like me to give it, about marketing with what pertains to what you talked about touch marketing, direct mail.
You're welcome to do it. Keep it under a minute if you would, please.
Okay, I will. So you know that I specialize in apartment building lobbies and hallways in New York City, and what I've created is a direct mail mailing list of both emails and addresses, phone numbers. And I've created a campaign, but I send out a lovely box once a year. It's about 12 inches by 15 inches, about 9 inches high, and it's filled with novelty items, but most especially a 2-pocket folder that I personally art-directed and branded, filled with all kinds of information, as well as handy postcards that can go out to the management companies' clients who are the boards of these co-op and condominium buildings. Then, throughout the year, I'm sending out a smaller gift item that they can open that goes out by priority mail. There's a special price for a small box. It's about $7.65. I have a gold bar with my logo on it. And then, of course, there's some other marketing peripheral materials that goes in there. Excuse me, I was just nibbling on something. So that has been my campaign in New York City. And I wanted to share that with your lovely.
Jonathan, I'm impressed. And then that begs the important question: how are you gauging your efficacy, and are you getting projects from it?
I've developed that for this year. Then the epidemic hit. But historically, my marketing for the last 15 years has been solely a trade show with a glamorous booth that has my marketing material, my presentation boards and renderings there, and marketing materials, and me in the booth, impeccably dressed, meeting with the clients. I actually don't walk away with any one particular customer and close a deal, shall we say. But what it did was it branded me, and then simultaneously I was running advertising. I'm totally took away from that. I don't believe that is my direction any longer. It's direct mail, exactly how you spoke about, and I developed this campaign. So I don't have the statistical results.
Well, you know what? You will get something from this, and I'm thrilled for you, and I'm really pleased. And I'm grateful that you shared your campaign. Another question, please. *6 if anybody wants to ask a question.
Can I?
Jonna, go for it if you have a question. Or I don't hear anybody.
Lloyd, there's one last piece I'd like to share. It's very important, which is I follow up also with providing an in-office presentation, a PowerPoint presentation on how to work with an interior designer and how they charge for apartment building public spaces. That was my last piece.
Good for you, Jonathan. You are on it, marketing guru. Okay, great.
We've been in alliance.
We've always gotten along well. I appreciate that. Any other? We have time for one more question. Does anybody have a question they would like to ask about anything? No? Going once, going twice. Julia, would you like to offer a closing thought?
Yeah, I think right now we've got, between 3 and 6 months before, and that's just my best guess in terms of the rate in which things are opening up. I think people have a window of opportunity right now to pause a minute and really retool, revamp their business. Again, inward-facing, look at all the bottlenecks where things are held up, where you're spending too much time, where you're not organized. Clean all of that up back of house and really focus on aligning your brand with a mission, a way of being, an ethos, a vibe, not just about the things you do, but the why behind it. That is where the power is in your messaging. So it's not just about pretty pictures. It's about what you really provide through that design. And when you can hit the heart chord of people that are craving that feeling or that way of being, that lifestyle, whatever it is, that's when your marketing efforts are going to be super effective. And everything needs to be congruent with that. You lose your best clients when you say you're one thing and then they go to your website and like the font isn't, it's Arial, or the spacing isn't good. You've got some cruddy pictures on there. Your headshot 10 years old and grainy.
Yeah. You're 100. Listen,
so
Julia,
basic.
you're
but
100%.
I mean, if that is on right, yeah, just be on brand. Everything needs to be on brand. That's where it is. That's the power.
Let me leave you with a prediction. I agree with Julia. She says 3 to 6 months. I don't disagree with that at all. And I also have another thought. I think that as soon as the supply chains open up again, I think we're going to see a bit of a deluge from people who have now been sitting at their homes, facing all four walls, seeing all the crap that they were able to ignore because they were busy working at offices and their kids were gone, and now that the whole house has been full, I think they see exactly what needs to be, redone, and and if they've got the money, which plenty of them do, they're going to go ahead and get these things done. It may not be massive projects, but it will be something, lots of little things coming in, and you know what? Don't say no to it. And I would also suggest that part of this is going to be fueled by the fact that in the back of their minds, they realize we may have another outbreak. And if we have another outbreak and if we're all forced back inside again, they better get this crap cleaned up quickly. So for those of you who've got tight vendor relationships or your clients start to call you, do not be afraid to say, hey, listen, we will get our check in the queue, and this is obviously with vendors that are going to stay in business. We're going to get the check in the queue, and as soon as we can get this released, we're going to get it shipped. So I would absolutely, and you might even send that out as a marketing message to people, just saying, listen, we have clients, we're getting our clients queued up, for when the supply chain opens up again, please, let us know if there's anything you want to be included. I think that would be a great marketing thing to do. And on that note, I'm going to end this with a very brief thought from Anne Moreau Lindbergh, 1906 to 2001. We have so little faith in the ebb and flow of life, of love, of relationships. We leap at the flow of the tide and resist in terror at its ebb. We are afraid that it will never return. We insist on permanency, on duration, on continuity, when the only continuity possible in life, as in love, is in growth, in fluidity. So on that note, I want to let you know I'm also grateful for the support and for your participation, and to let you know that we will meet again in the wonderful words and insightful words of the lovely Queen Elizabeth II. So on that note, I'm going to end the recording. I hope everyone has a great Friday, a great happy hour, and a great weekend. Thank you, Julia, for your time.
Thank you, Lloyd.